Dear all, thank you again and welcome for joining us and to our World Heritage 2021 debates and the month dedicated to the impact of disaster and pandemics on World Heritage sites. I am Humberto Bonomo, Director of the Cultural Heritage Center of the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, and with Fernando Pérez, Karen Gole, Yolanda Muñoz, and Hilter González, we have planned this seminar called One World Seminar that brings us profound knowledge accumulated from around the world on how pandemics and natural and social disaster have affected and continue affecting our World Heritage sites. The speakers of this session will kindly share different case studies, experiences, and lessons, allowing us to obtain a better context related to the recent situation and state of health of our World Heritage. Throughout this month, we have planned more than 20 sessions and conversation, a collective effort of more than 100 people, some of which are from the most remote areas of the globe. We have more than 2,000 participation between Zoom and YouTube in this month. I will also like to thank all the coordinator of each of the session and the presenters who will accompany us throughout the month of May. For those who don't know our World Heritage Foundation, it seems relevant to me to recall our goals. The purpose of the foundation is to promote heritage protection, conservation, and management, to support knowledge-based decision-making, to promote good governance of the World Heritage Convention, and to engage, and maybe the most important thing, is to engage and empower civil society in heritage protection and management. Having said this, I will introduce the theme of this month, sharing you a short video that explains how disaster and pandemics have affected the world.
Recent disasters and an actual pandemic have exposed the fragility and vulnerability of our world heritage. These exceptional sites and pieces, which we would like to preserve for all humanity and future generations, do not exist in a segregated world. They belong to our social environment and our daily life. But at the same time, the World Heritage Sites are in danger. They are threatened by natural hazards that attempt against their existence. The pandemic has revealed their fragility and how much the human presence in them is vital and necessary for their survival. How can we protect them and at the same time give them life and new meanings? If we hope for a future for them, we should stop considering them only as beautiful objects or places, merchandise for the tourist industry, and fully integrate them into the social and cultural dynamics of daily life. We propose to promote a great discussion around the world on the risks and effects of disasters and pandemics on World Heritage Sites. We invite non-governmental organizations, academies, representatives of civil society, and local governments to participate, to contribute with new proposals for public policies on the conservation and safeguarding of the cultural and natural heritage of humanity.
Today's session is called Physical Reconstruction in World Heritage Sites, and the coordinator and the organizer of this session is Professor Hua Xiaoning. He is a postdoctoral researcher in School of Architecture and Urban Planning in Tongjin University in Shanghai. a PhD in Research Institute of Architecture in the Southeast University in Nanjing, Subdean of the Department of Architecture and Dean Assistant of School of Architecture and Urban Planning in Nanjing University. Please, Professor Hua, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bento. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to this seminar. Yeah, I will share my screen. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much to participate this 1 hour World Heritage Seminar. Size, and we have 5 of sorry.
We are not, yeah, Professor.
Yeah,
we are not able to see your screen. It's not working, and maybe your connection is not.
Okay, I will try to do it again. Yeah, sorry.
Don't worry. We have lost Professor Hua. We wait. I think that he's coming.
He's
back.
frozen. If he has some technical issues, maybe he could send me his presentation.
Yeah.
I pass the slides.
Coming in again. Professor, yeah.
Yeah, I come back. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe it's better if you don't share your screen, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I just introduce the speakers of this session. Yeah, the first one will be Professor Xu Dongming, come from China. And the second one will be Professor Christoph Schnorr of New Zealand. The third speaker will be Fatima Tuagia, come from Kenya. The next speaker will be Professor Placido Gonzalez of Spain. And the last speaker will be Ricardo Lopez, come from USA. So thank you. Let's begin the first speaker. Professor Xu Dongming, please. Turn on the microphone. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Can see the screen? Is it shared?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hi everyone. The title of my presentation today called "The Challenges of a Reconstruction Approach to Archaeological Sites Presentation in China," taking the case of Xi'an Daming Palace site as an example. It's based on a draft paper written by me and my colleague, Professor Goi Sheng, at the Lab of Vernacular Heritage Conservation of the State Administration of Cultural Heritage, Shandong Jianyu University. And yeah, my talk today is divided into 5 parts. First, I will present a brief overview of the listed heritage sites, and including the World Heritage Sites in China, as well as the physical reconstruction in the listed sites in China. And then I will give a brief introduction to the location of the selected case, the historical town of Xi'an, and then the case of Daming of Danfeng Gate ruins in Daming Palace Side Park, and then it will be a brief summary. Yeah, this slide this slide shows a brief background information of the national listed sites in China. Since 1961, the Chinese central government has issued 5,058 national listed heritage sites, and together with the provincial and municipal level listed sites, which constitutes China's cultural heritage conservation system. Approximately 96% of these national listed sites were issued after 1980s, the economic reform in China, including 55 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And also about 83% of these have been issued during the last 2 decades, which from 1997 to 2007. Speaking of the physical reconstruction in listed heritage sites, there are 3 types of performance that can be seen in China. Specifically, these 3 trends include post-disaster reconstruction or restoration in the heritage sites, archaeological shelters with the restored historical images for presentation of archaeological sites, and the physical reconstruction in the historical towns based on the purpose of urban development. And the third one is the most criticized and controversial. And my talk today will focus on the second one. Since the case of Daming Palace site is selected for discussion today, a brief background introduction to the location is needed. And this is the historical town of Xi'an. Xi'an has a history as a city for over 3,000 years and have been as a capital city for 13 dynasties. And geographically, Xi'an is located in the area of the Yellow River Valley, which is the center area of China, has been concerned as the cradle of the mainstream of China's Asian civilization. And we can see the different heritage sites from different dynasties, and also the historical buildings. And this is a picture of the Drum Tower district, the center of the city of Xi'an in 1970s. And this is a picture of the same area in the year of 2000. And we can see this is a typical image of the same area, and we can see it is under the heavy process of urbanization and commercialization, presenting the conflicts between the modern development and heritage conservation. And this is the map on the right side shows the different large archaeological site areas of different dynasties of the city. It's a and the map on the left is the location of the site, and the all these light color areas is the archaeological sites in this area of Daming Palace Site Park. And this is the ruins of some of the main hall, Mingde Hall, and this is the historical pictures in from the 1980s and 90s of the site. According to the archaeological field investigation, we can see, and it says there's some cave dwellings was constructed on the ruins of the palace, and also these the circumstance and the area after the Tang Dynasty was overthrown in at the end of the 9th century, and the area was transformed gradually into a farmland and village since the empire was overthrown. And the circumstances did not change much until 1930s, when a great mass of refugees from the flood area of the Yellow River in Henan province settled in districts, and then the refugees inhabits the area outside the northern Ming Wall, city wall, and also the so this is these pictures shows these slum areas of the site. And from 2010, and the whole archaeological area was built as a national site park, and which is a part of the Silk Road World Heritage. And we can see that there's some archaeological presentation for the for the ruins in the site. And this is the case we'll discuss today at the archaeological shelters for the Danfeng Gate ruins. And we can see it's a restored historical image of the Danfeng Gate yeah, and actually it's an archaeological shelter and built on the site. And because of the all these rammed earth materials, it's very hard. It's unreadable for the visitors, and so it's a common strategy for the archaeological sites in China, and to build these archaeological shelters with the historical image. And this is a historical map in the Song Dynasty, and shows the basic layout of the site. And this is the actual this is the archaeological sites in 2005, and so and the archaeological plan and sections of Danfeng Gate ruins in Tang Dynasty. And this is the model shows the basic approach for this Danfeng Gate ruins. And we can see they use protection buildings and on the top of it, and it's a steel structure which is reversible, and which is it follows the principle of the minimal intervention and reversible principles. But and this is the image when the site park opened, and we can see it for the surface. The architects use a model like use a material similar to the rammed earth materials, and so it's all like model, and which is distinguishable from the site. And this is the interior view of the site. And the basic challenge of this restored historical image, and which we can call it's a way of reconstruction on the historical sites, is that this slide shows the archaeological restoration image of Ming Gate ruins in the Tang Dynasty by the two experts. We can see even the same, even with the same the layout of the archaeological ruins, and the image can be very different. So then we can see for the Danfeng Gate, it's the same way of it. So we can see I think the main problem for this approach is that it can be make a wrong interpretation for the real image of the site. In fact, this approach is quite popular in many archaeological listed archaeological sites in China. And for instance, this is the Hanyang the cemetery, imperial cemetery areas of Hanyang Ling Mausoleum, which is from 2000 BC to 200 AD, BC to 200 AD, and when the ruins of Cells Tower is excavated, and the Hanyang Museum built an archaeological shelter on the top of the archaeological ruins with a restored image and on the top of site. And we can see it's with so many details, and also they use the steel framework, which is claim they claim it's reversible, but in fact we can it's a quite we can see the volume and all those details is quite disturbing in the site. From this figure we can see that. Yeah, and also there's in the city of Luoyang, it's also a historical town in China, and we can see in the name of protecting the archaeological sites and of the archaeological ruins, and there's a 67-meter high building with a build on the top of it as a which claim as a archaeological shelter, but actually it's based on the commercial purpose, and so then we can see all this kind of approach is also quite controversial and arouse a lot of discussion. And this is my this is all about my presentation today. And I think we could discuss if you have any questions, we can discuss and have more discussions on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Dongming, for the impressive presentation of this case study. And I think it's very interesting to show us a creative way to make the physical reconstruction and some new way to make the physical reconstruction and satisfy the modern requirement in the new age. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think after all the speakers, we can have enough time to discuss and make some discussion. Okay, thank you very much. Then let's go to the second speaker, Christoph Schnorr from New Zealand. Welcome, thank you. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll I will take you to Samoa. I'll take you to the Pacific Islands and show you a building that I tried to save together with a group of other people about from 10 years ago. But unfortunately, this building was demolished by the Samoan government in 2020, just during the pandemic last year. So in order to give you an idea where we are, Australia to the left, New Zealand, those two small islands to the bottom, and here in the red square, you see the two main islands of Samoa, Savaii and Upolu, and on the main island Upolu is Apia, the center, the capital. You see to the left, Mulinu'u village, the traditional fale buildings by the Samoans, and I gave you a little quote here by Robert Louis Stevenson, who I think everybody knows through his novels, particularly Treasure Island. He spent the last 3 years of his life, 1891 to 94, in Samoa, and writes to Adelaide Boodle, one of his friends, "There's only one harbour where ships can come, even that is very wild and dangerous. All round the harbour the town is strung out. It is nothing but wood houses, only there are some churches built of stone, not very large, but the people have never seen such fine buildings. Almost all the houses are of one story. Away at one end lives the king of the country. His palace has a thatched roof, which stands upon posts. It has no walls, but when it blows and rains, they have Venetian blinds, which they let down between the posts and make it very snug." So this is sort of a European's view of the indigenous architecture in Samoa, to just give you a tiny little impression of kind of around 1900. The Germans took over colonial government of Samoa in 1900 after a long and complex political struggle between the British, the US Americans, with sort of pretty much ignoring the Samoans themselves. And what I'm showing you here is a map of the colonial administration by the Germans and kind of the location map of their public buildings. You see the harbour area, and around the harbour area, they erected a building that was that became known as their courthouse. The builder, Friedrich Stünzner, designed it at first. You see that to the left. I'm sorry for the blurriness of the picture. There are hardly any images surviving of that first part of the building, and was extended later on by a German architect who was called Albert Schaffhausen, who spent his whole life, his whole professional life in Samoa later on. I don't want to delve into this in detail, but just give you a tiny impression into the way in which lives might have happened between the European kind of background of their lives and the colonies in which they ended up. It was a back and forth, as you can see, and here's a German who ended up not only living and working in Samoa, but also working under the German and later on the New Zealand administration. These first building iterations that you just saw there, they were, the first building that Stünzner had designed was extended after 1907. You see a drawing by Schaffhausen that shows kind of what he is intending to do. Here's another drawing that he made. He made a series of drawings for the extension of the building. There was a plan to not only house the the court, the justice functions in that building, but also the government itself. And this is what the building was extended for. In 1914, then, the New Zealand Armed Forces took Samoa on the first day almost of the war. They had intended this a long time, in sort of made it in the planning, and they came sort of early on, and invaded Samoa, and because the Germans basically had no arms, they just surrendered and said, okay, well, now here you go. And New Zealand was later given a mandate by the League of Nations until Samoa's independence in 1962. So this is a very short impression into the sort of multicultural history of this one building that might have been designed by the Germans, but was used by Germans, New Zealanders, and Samoans. It was in use until 2010, 2011, when a Chinese government funded building as a sort of a palace of justice was built in Mulinu'u. I'd mentioned Mulinu'u before. That's the traditional seat of the Samoan government. This building that doesn't look like anything that would belong to Samoa replaced a number of other buildings and posed immediate problems for the historical buildings. All of a sudden, the courthouse was empty, was not in use anymore, and it was in danger of falling down. I learned about this in 2011 on a visit to Samoa, and so together with a conservation architect in Auckland, Adam Wild, a group of students from my university, and together with a trust, the Courthouse Trust in Apia, we started a program to save this building. This started off with a laser scan that was funded by the German embassy in Wellington. Geometria did it in these fantastic archaeological, quite ghostly drawings that they made. You can see the plans, you can see a sort of full ghost perspective, if you will. And we found that because it was archaeologists who made these drawings, we couldn't quite use them as architectural drawings. So they had to be transformed and transferred into veritable architectural drawings. And then from there on, students of our master program started designing suggestions what to do with this building. In March 2012, a couple of months after this laser scan, we were able to visit Apia and take many kind of recording photos of the building. You can see the fantastic courtyard that would have been very inviting for some place to gather, sit around and drink a coffee. You see these wonderful deep verandas. You see the old courtroom on the ground floor. And you see problems with the wiring and material problems of the building. Adam Wild and I basically wrote a conservation plan together, which was published and has been very kind of useful in the sort of in making this problem a bit more public. And the students had made their designs, and we set up an exhibition of this, of all this work, both the historical research that the students and myself had done and their designs. And we were able to do this exhibition in August 2012 in the very courthouse itself. And you see them kind of mounting this exhibition. You see that the exhibition hanging was a great success in terms of media interest. You see kind of the local radio and TV stations kind of walking around. The police band played, and Tuilepa, the Prime Minister, spoke, but he was not convinced that it was necessary to save a building like this. He suggested that he was much more interested in making sure that every village had water. And he said, if it was for me, I would tear this down. And that was a bit of a shock. And it wasn't until 2 or 3 years later that he changed his mind and said, okay, the Courthouse Trust, perhaps they can finally look after the building. Unfortunately, it was so difficult for them to organize further funding and organize the sort of the planning that would have been associated with this, that didn't come to fruition. I tried another sort of avenue of getting this on the agenda, through a contact with another school in North Germany, and with my friend Marcus Huckel, we did another design studio, and were able to present those designs to Puma, the town planning agency in Apia. You can see that to the left. That was quite successful in the sense that our suggestions were taken on board by a committee that developed a new waterfront plan. And I just kind of give you one image of that to the right, in which they incorporated the courthouse as a main feature. So there were a number of elements that would have led to the final preservation of the building, had it not been for the, shall we say, political and organizational difficulties in Samoa. And it's very difficult when you are not a Samoan, when you are in New Zealand, and you can't, you can't do this project directly, kind of in the place where it needs to happen. We had imagined that something like the house of Robert Louis Stevenson, which is well preserved and is one of the few historical buildings in Samoa to survive, that this could serve as a model for the building. But unfortunately, because of pressure to invest and build a new hotel on that site, it was dismantled in 2020. And I say dismantled because apparently the contractor suggested that they would wish to rebuild the building one day, and that they didn't demolish it. However, I don't think that they numbered the building parts, so I'm not so sure whether that would be successful in the end. So this is a very short snapshot of a building conservation project that until now has not been successful, but I'm not completely out of hope. But the question is, what could we do now? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Christoph Schnorr. I think your presentation is very interesting. For it's a great pity for this building is demolished, but I think your work and your students' work will make very useful for in the future physical reconstruction. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, let's go to the next speaker, Fatima Tuakia, come from Kenya. Fatima, please. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm unable to share.
Yeah. Please share your screen.
I'm giving the permission, Fatma. Okay, now you can.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I represent the Heritage Institution of Kenya, and I work from the For Jesus World Heritage Site. However, we go through great lengths to ensure that we retain and maintain and conserve heritage as it is, because once it collapses, the possibility of reconstruction is almost impossible because of the cost implications around them. Even the idea of rehabilitation is normally a challenge because of the financial implications with that. So what I'm presenting is Leven House. It is a building that is located within the buffer zone of the heritage property. So Leven House was constructed in around 1824, and it takes its name from a naval vessel that was anti-slaving, and it has seen a transition of ownership from the British, then to the Sultan. Later on, around 1844,
There is some
missionaries living in the same house as its common consulate in 1900s. And in 1997, it was gazetted as a heritage building. That means it is now under the protection of the Kenyan government to ensure its continued existence. However, at this point, the ownership is still within private persons. So in 2001, we see the building as is on the lower right corner. So what happened in 2001? We had a training program, the Africa 2009. It was a regional course. We got participants from different parts of Africa. And from this training program, they used this building as a case study. And we managed to get the students to do a physical survey, a conditional survey. They managed to identify the stakeholders and come up with a management plan. As a conclusion of that training program, there was a presentation, and we were lucky to have some representatives from the French embassy that took interest in this building. So from then on, we see the outcome of that exercise, where in the condition survey, they represent this building as being deteriorated. It has vegetation, it has some settlement. That means the building is almost falling apart. The walls are lagging. The woodwork is collapsing. Some of the windows are, as you can see in the picture, the hinges are out, some are in bad shape. However, it was seen to be of value, that it is a building that had a lot of architectural significance, and hence worth restoring. There was lots of cracks also internally and externally, so the immediate reaction was required. So a plan of action ensued, and the first thing that was a priority was the ownership bid. So from a cooperation from the French government, ICROM, and the Kenyan government, the first step was to negotiate with the owners and buy the property, making it totally owned by the Kenyan government. And then we managed to get funding. And then from this funding, initial stage was emergency restoration, rescuing the structure so that it doesn't collapse. Then another stage would be partial restoration, and of course the final finish. And at this point in time in 2002, a team was selected. It comprised of external experts, some of our own internal engineers and architects, local masons, because we are looking at a building that was constructed with local construction materials, coral stone, limestone mortar, and we needed the local people's knowledge in order to understand its way of restoring it properly. So this drawing just represents the level of intervention. As the walls were giving way, there was a need to tie them back together. So the emergency restoration was putting in tie rods at different levels of the building, so that the building is held together using these steel tie rods. And then when the building was brought together, the I-beams that were holding the floor slabs moved. So there was a need to also introduce new columns to hold the I-beams so that the floors are stable. Initially, the main reason for the failure, aside from age, was dampness. So one of the initial emergency actions was to reduce any additional dampness coming to the building. So once the restoration, this building shows the emergency restoration. This is shoring and holding up the roof slabs and floor slabs. And what I'm showing over here are the tie rods that were passing right through the building, and they were held on either ends of the building, holding the building together. So once we had ensured that there's no further collapse on this building, then there was now a need to identify what sort of function we can put into it so that it is relevant to both the administration and the community. At this point in time, there were funds that were available and allowed for proper consultation, different user groups, different community groups. It varied from different below attached user groups and what they thought was ideal for that building. The different what came out of that discussion was that we should leave the ground floor totally as commercial, and this was to be under the management of the community. The first floor was initially left for exhibition space. However, currently it's being used as an office of our regional director. And then the second floor are offices of MODCO and accommodation. MODCO is the Mombasa Old Town Conservation Office that administers the administration of the Old Town, the buffer zone of the World Heritage property. Okay, so once the usage had been established through proper consultation, work started. And this is now phase 2. We are looking into the masonry bit. This building is built from coral blocks. So we brought in huge coral boulders that needed to be broken down into small bits. And then if anybody's familiar with East African architecture, there is a need to use lime mortar. And anytime you use lime, you need to hydrate it. You need to store it in a pit for almost 3 weeks so that you reduce impurities and the salt content. So this was a mixing of the lime, which was later held in a place for 3 weeks. And then over here, we see now the tedious work of putting a small coral blocks and the lime mortar so that you try and bring in the vertical levels to try and correct the settlement or the differential movement of the wall that initially happened. After this was leveled and then the plastering was done. So this was the masonry work that was done. And then they went on, once the walls were established, we looked into the roof. The roof, of course, was initially held. And then there was a serious examination on different members of the roof structure. Not all the wood pieces were removed. Any that was seen to have been compromised by weathering was replaced, but otherwise the rest was left as is. And once the structure was established and the strength was confirmed, the entire roof was redone using the original or similar galvanized iron sheets that was previously used. Over here, we see now after the roofing structure, trusses are okay, and the roofing done, we did the ceiling in wood. And what we're trying to show, once the roof has been done, we also worked on the floors, ensuring that while you're holding the floors in place, you are replacing the members that had deteriorated and putting back the original system of construction as was before. But however, we need to point at this level is that we cheated a bit and poured a minimal concrete slab to ensure the strength of the floor that we are currently putting up. The windows and doors and other woodwork, most of the windows and doors that were already there did not deteriorate because they were made of hard wood. There was a need for repairs of hinges and other small items. Parts of the windows were restored. If there was need, then a new window was done, but in accordance to the design of the old one. This was the original staircase, and it was just sandpapered and varnished as was. Wrought iron balconies, most of them were not so badly off. They were sandpapered and painted, and those that and then in order to make that building functional, there was a need again to do the electrical and the plumbing bit. Then this was totally modern to fit in the new function that was being anticipated. in 2009, when we were into the third phase of the finishes, this is a point in where we are doing the floor finishes, wooden finishes around the balcony areas, tiles within the offices, and then plastering inside the spaces. Outside here, we are seeing our old mason here trying to sampling out different color schemes for the external bit of the building. What I'm showing you here is the finished building. This is the office, the Mombasa Old Town Conservation Office, with all the modern facilities installed to work as an office. This is the accommodation that is leased to the public for payment to allow for revenue generation. And then this is the restaurant that exists down on the ground floor that is run by the community. This is the building once it was finished. This is it right now as is, as it continues.
Okay, maybe you lost the connect.
Within the community.
Okay.
What I can highlight from this is that to secure.
Okay. 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 I think
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
But
okay.
yeah.
So the last bit was the critical point, the community involvement, where the community was trained in business management so that they can run that commercial ground floor. And then there was that aspect of capacity building, where the local youth were taught the indigenous technology that it was involved in restoring this building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatima. I think your presentation shows us a very interesting case study of the physical intervention to heritage, especially some very interesting local tectonic method. Yes, very interesting. Thank you very much. Okay, then let's go to the next speaker is Professor Placido Gonzalez from Spain. Yeah, please.
Hi. Hello, and thank you again for the kind invitation. I would go and move to my presentation. 1 second. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. So the case about which I will be speaking is the Cathedral Mosque of Cordoba, and it is basically an attempt to establish a framework from the conceptual level about the issue of reconstruction related to the production of authenticity. Basically, the idea departs also from an analysis of the regulations that apply in Spain to the issue of reconstruction. That, as you can see here, this is a Spanish heritage law from 1985, where basically reconstruction is forbidden and it needs to be avoided, unless, as you can see in this title, unless you use original parts of the buildings, and that provided that the authenticity of these elements can be proved. Because of the articulation of the conservation management system in Spain, there is also a very important regulation, which is the regional law in Spain, that basically establishes the same issue. In this Andalusia Heritage Law from 2027, this is basically the same issue, basically to avoid any intents of reconstruction, unless on the reposition of the elements of the reconstructed elements, some original elements are used, and there is a need to provide very precise information, documentary information, and to give a proof of the authenticity. So this issue of authenticity seems to be a very important one. And my point is that either from a materialist approach or from a constructivist approach, which are the two main approaches that I think are operative in this situation, it is a matter of power, this decision making, by means of which there are two processes. The first of which is the production of sanitized narratives informing the past history of these buildings, and this, as I will show in the Cathedral Mosque of Cordoba, it is a very, very contested issue. And secondly, how these narratives inform authorized heritage discourses that really determine the documentation, intervention, dissemination of this heritage. So the story of this building is a very contested one. You can see here the map of the Iberian Peninsula showing the position of Cordoba, which was in the Middle Ages one of the greatest cities of the world. And the Cathedral Mosque of Cordoba is a show of the prowess of this city during the years of since the 8th century to the 13th century, during which this city, Cordoba, which is of Roman foundation, was the core, or one of the key of the cores of the Islamic times of the Iberian Peninsula. As you can see here, this is an image of the exterior of the site, and this is showing how this is an outcome of the evolution of the process of expansion of Islam, that, as you can see, has Cordoba as one of the key points that I think it is important also always to take into consideration in relationship with the other pole, which is Constantinople, and I will reflect also at the end of my presentation about the case of Hagia Sophia, because I think they both show these very contested issues that relate to the power, to the interpretation of the history, to how it is shown today as part of a greater heritage assemblage that is going on in a city like Cordoba today. The position of this element is a very strategic one, located in the south of the of the original Roman city, in the south of next to the Guadalquivir river, that you can see here in the number 12 would be the position of the Cathedral Mosque. This is a history that, seen from the material perspective, is a history where the notion of authenticity is completely flawed, in my opinion. This is a story of a building that, as you can see, started in the late 8th century as an original foundation, referring to the principles of the typology of the mosque architecture, with the covered part and the open courtyard, together with alminar, so the tower for calling to the prayer, and how the story of this building was a story of a very complex evolution, and the reuse and the constant interpretation and development according to the previous stage of the mosque, and which is a very unique example in the history of architecture. See here, you can see the first plan of the mosque. That, as you can see, I'm calling this an issue of cannibalism, because basically the elements that were used for this mosque were recycled elements coming from civil buildings located and domestic buildings located in the neighboring areas. So as you can see, this first section, and it is really evident in the columns, that you can see how all the capitals of these columns are completely different, coming from different locations. and how there was a need to establish like a general agreement that was the adoption of this very unique double height that is allowing through the two layers of arches, allowing for a greater height that was basically not available due to the short dimensions that these original columns had. How this structural system was considered to be a very unique one with very important properties for structural stability and for the durability of the building, working basically as aqueducts leading towards the south, which would be the place where the waters would be evacuated. How the extension of the extensions of the mosque responded to moments where the history of Cordoba lived very important moments of population expansion as well. So here you can see how the original wall of the Qibla, which was maintained in the first expansion, which is basically what you can see in this this line that became the reference point for the extension towards the south of the Qibla wall. How the Alminar was also built in a different position according to the new requirements. How you can see here the second second extension, which was deemed to be the richest one, and how the position of the most important points, which is always this mihrab, the position in the Qibla wall, was always remaining and kept as a memory of the previous stage of the development of the mosque. You can see how the mosque extended to the south and showing a very rich element, a Qibla, which was no longer a wall, but also a space by itself. How the first and the previous mihrabs were kept as a memory of the importance of the evolution, the different stages of the evolution of this place. So therefore, the notion of what is the original, the authentic properties of this element are always being subject to change. So therefore, this is a very, very difficult notion to grasp. How this second mihrab was also signified by means of a very unique structural system, and how the different extensions, as you can see, no longer used recycled elements, but because of the importance and the economic development of the caliphate, were already using ad hoc built elements. So this means, very evident proof of how the different stages of construction in the mosque are very easy to apprehend. Here you can see elements of the richness, showing the richness and the contamination, I would say, and the exchange with Byzantium, which was the origin of this mosaic technique, which is the covering the maksura in the mihrab space. Here you can see the mihrab, the late maksura, and how the extension towards the east was the one that really multiplied the space, and this was at the end of the 10th century and marks the highlight of the development of the caliphate in Cordoba, which is signified by the extension of the mosque. This is the extension, and what I would highlight is how the introduction of the after the Christian. After the turn of the 13th century and the change of the system from Islam to Christian religion, then the whole history of the building changed, but keeping a very important idea, which is a continuity at all times with the previous memory, Islamic memory of the site. I'm pointing here, for example, at how the first church that was built inside of the building was located in this position, using basically the position of the first mihrab used as a new altar of the church, which is, as you can see, going in a very different orientation, using demolishing some of the columns in order to create a wider nave in order to adopt the Christian cult inside, and how you can see also the greatest impact of the building of the cathedral in the 16th century, which was really the proof, like the test for the authenticity of this place, which was resolved, in my opinion, in a very unique and a very successful way. Here you can see how this second mihrab, which was used as a new altar for the first church which was incorporated to the mosque, was just signified by introducing minimum religious movable elements in this case. How the Gothic nave was, as I'm showing here, the product and the outcome of the demolition of a small section of the columns of the original mosque, creating a new contrast on the speciality between the Islamic architecture and the new Christian architecture. This is the Capilla Mayor, as it is named, showing also the continuity of this of the original structure, and how, when the cathedral was built in the 16th century, the key issue and the main promoter of this building, which was the Emperor Charles I, the main command from the Emperor was to keep the original state of the Islamic building as integral as possible. As you can see here, this very unique test and clash of different architectures aimed for the pursuing the centrality of the new Christian temple, which left the same distance from to the north and to the south to the new walls that were considered the interior limits of the temple. So basically, the Islamic temple would function here as a deambulatory of the new Christian cathedral. Here you can see how the atrium of the cathedral was located in this very important central axis, where the mihrabs of the mosque had been located originally, and how this was kept due to the very powerful structure of the building. How the changes that were introduced in this architecture in order to re-signify them were also in other locations, like the Capilla del Sagrario, just by means of introducing new layers of painting and applying new decoration that contrasts with the original decoration. And how the introduction of the cathedral chore meant a completely new speciality of this building that nevertheless is not so evident when you're inside of it, but that, as you can see here, is a proof of a very strong impact of the introduction of the Christian architecture. So this is what I would refer to the very difficult task that we have ahead when we try to determine the authenticity of this place according to its architecture. I would highlight how in the 1970s, in one of the most important campaigns of restoration, there was a very strong debate referring to the possibility of demolishing the cathedral, the Christian temple, as it was built in the 16th in the late 16th century. Fortunately, this was never done, and as you can see in this image, the cathedral stands as it is now. But there is also a very important debate regarding the authenticity of the temple, referring to its constructivist approach. That refers basically to the and this is a very important detail, how the mosque cathedral has been named, especially, and the changes that have been taking place in the last years. Here you can see in the left part of this image how we have been going through since 1966 to the 2000s to different ways of naming this temple. So you can see it was mosque cathedral, then holy cathedral church, going then to cathedral only, and then to mosque cathedral. So this has been a very contested issue on which we have different stakeholders taking part, which in my opinion, and this has been also extensively researched and published, greatly determines the way that this that this building has been interpreted, and also showed and tried to bring to different to a different use. There was a very important controversy when there was an important movement aiming for the shared use of this building, together with the rising Islamic community in the south of Spain. A very important conflict which happened in 2010, when there were 100 Muslim believers who tried to pray in this space. At the same time, when the Holy Week of Cordoba was taking place, this created a very important conflict that has since then also really influenced the way that the works around the mosque cathedral have been developed. Here you can see news from only 1 month ago, showing the latest developments in the main courtyard of the mosque, which is the show or the proof of how very intense attempts have been taken in the last years in order to claim for the Christian origins of this location. And these are the excavations that have tried to recover the remains of the supposedly original episcopal, so Christian site before the arrival of Muslims in the 8th century, which is a discussion that is very, very hot right now in the city, and that, as you can see, is focusing on the recovery of these original elements that have been unveiled. Right now, when you visit the interior of the mosque cathedral, you will see this very small archaeological crypt that shows the supposed location of the Church of San Vicente, which was, before the construction of the mosque, the main religious center in the city. And this row about the identity of the place, the World Heritage Center, also has a very important say on it, because just by visiting the website of the World Heritage Center and the listing information about this site, the only denomination that is being used is about the Great Mosque, and this is a very, a very significant issue that is repeated throughout the website, that greatly determines also the appreciation of this place, referring to basically how the authenticity of the mosque it is interpreted in terms of shape, design, etc., without taking into consideration the later additions and basically the Christian additions that were developed since the 13th century, and that, in my opinion, refers greatly, and we always need to consider the other great monument located in the other side of the Mediterranean that especially affects the latest changes about that were known last year about the change of the status of Hagia Sophia in the city of Istanbul. I think this contested history is a key from my perspective to understand and to focus a discussion on the issues of reconstruction, even the reconstructions that have taken that could have happened in the mosque cathedral, the most radical ones, especially this 1970s project to demolish and recover the spatiality of the Islamic temple have not been developed. But basically, the reconstructions right now that could take place are limited from a legal perspective, and also should be on a very important issue of authenticity criteria. How this is a very contested notion at all levels in this very important monument in Spain, and how this is basically, and any hypothetical reconstructions or recovery of previous elements is greatly determined by the contested histories that are right now being discussed in the city, also at a national level, in a moment where, as you all know, and this is an outcome of globalization, nationalism is greatly determining the agendas that relate to the production of heritage and also to its conservation and its dissemination. With this, I would thank you again for the possibility of discussing these ideas and look forward to the comments and the debate with the colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Placido. You make a really fantastic and impressive presentation. I think the Cordova Great Mosque is a very complex building, and it is just like a palimpsest recording the many historical information, so it is very difficult to make physical reconstruction in this site. So thank you very much. And now we come to the last presentation. Presenter Ricardo Lopez come from USA. Please, Ricardo.
Good morning. Thank you, Professor Hua. Actually, I'm here with a collaborator. My colleague, Professor Teófilo Victoria, is going to give the first part of the presentation, and then I'll follow up after he does.
Okay. Hello, welcome, Professor.
Yeah, can we share the screen?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Now you can have the permission.
Thank you. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
Let me see. Hold it. Sorry. Share the screen. How about now?
No, not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. We cannot see your screen. Yeah, it's okay. We can see it. Yeah, we can see it.
No.
Yes, can we see it?
Yeah, perfectly.
It's okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much for having us today. This is
please, you can start.
Yes. Very well. Thank you very much for having us. We have at the School of Architecture at the University of Miami for some years now we've been studying the material culture and cultural patrimony of the Caribbean, in particular, which is what this presentation is about, the vernaculars of the Bahamas, the wood construction, wood frame construction of the Bahamas. This presentation is divided into two parts, part one and part two. Part one is dedicated to the town of Hopetown in the Abaco Keys in the Bahamas, and focus on the outcome of the fabric of the town and its architecture, of course, after the onslaught of Hurricane Dorian in 2019, September the 1st of 2019. We have in the context of these studies of the architecture of the Bahamas and the vernaculars in particular of the Caribbean is in a larger scope study of material culture in drawing form, which we've done for several years, 30 years actually, throughout the world. And for the students of architecture and urbanism that participate in these courses, the ability to explain and describe material culture, whether it's artifacts or elements of folklore or popular culture, in drawing form is important in part because it allows them to understand the craft of production of these artifacts, but also allows them to relate to architecture and the particulars of and intimacy of uh, uh, popular culture, material culture to be precise, and buildings. We've studied as well um, buildings themselves, in particular wood frame structures, in part because it's the prevalent building material in this part of the world, but also because it's an ongoing tectonic system of construction. In other words, it's not merely preservation that we're interested in, but the manner in which we are able to continue traditional practices of construction in our times today. The Greater Caribbean, as you can see here, or the Bahamas rather, is situated slightly northeast of the Caribbean, in an area that, if you include the Gulf of Mexico, is referred to as the Grand Caribbean or the Greater Caribbean. And we can see from these aerial maps, or rather from this NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration map, as well as from this satellite view of the Bahamas, a view from outer space, the most important and salient characteristic, geological and geographic characteristic of the Bahamas, which is these extraordinary sandbanks, which is the light blue area that you see in the map, and and of course it's revealed in the aerial views, or satellite views rather. And so, in the history of the settlement of the Bahamas, at least in the European settlement of the Bahamas, which is what we're discussing today, close to the end of the 18th century, with the American Revolution, loyalists were displaced towards the British holdings, either in the north in Canada or throughout the Caribbean. And they settled in these reefs in the middle of the ocean, within the scope of the sandbanks, though, and developed these very beautiful towns that have been thriving, one could argue, since that time. In September 1 of 2019, though, the town of Hopetown was the location of landfall of Hurricane Dorian, which was a Category 5 hurricane, extraordinary force applied onto these settlements. Now, these settlements, which are primarily built out of wood frame construction, um, are situated in these reefs in the middle of the ocean, but there are also contemporary cities. And across the Sea of Avacos, or the Bay of Avacos, is the modern town, the post Second World War town of Marsh Harbor. And the fate of these towns, by the way, is recorded here in this video, where you see the uh, wholesale destruction of the town, and particularly the construction in reinforced concrete, which for a number of reasons was not able to resist the 200 mile per hour winds and a 25-foot high surge of the of the of the hurricane. On the other hand, the town of Hopetown, which is where the hurricane made landfall, it was practically intact. So we then began to study the reasons why this is so, and this was and how it is that these towns were able to survive to this extent. And we looked at them carefully. We understood that they were built on the reef, on the high ground on the reef, generally through a main road. We built maps to understand the location more precisely, the configuration of town and its geology and geography. We made also a map in order to conduct a sidewalk survey of the town. To the left, you have the map, and to the right, you have a means of sketching and commenting. And we studied the geological sectional condition of the site, which is primarily made of a reef and sand. The sand comes in the configuration of a dune, which we study its vegetation because the vegetation turns out to be a critical element of these of the well-being of the sand. And we also studied means by which, in this case, the model of a Venetian sand world, means by which we could mitigate the power of the surge, let's say, or the density of the surge, and also collect water in cisterns, and studied, of course, the means of construction in wood frame, as well as the configuration of the town, the relationship of buildings in section, and their spacing, and of course their location on the uh, on the top of this reef. And we did new projects based, of course, in the established codified system of construction in tradition, and in order to maintain continuity, of course, but also to take advantage of the fact that these tectonic systems have survived so well after such an extraordinary force applied to them. We studied as well, though, because we think it's an important aspect of historic preservation in general, and in particular to maintain continuity in construction, other parts of town where we could provide new housing, particularly for workers, using the techniques and in the manner, from an urbanistic point of view, of the traditions in place. And Ricardo will continue with the second part of this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Teófilo. Continuing on here, we're going to look at lessons of resilience through the documentation of historic buildings. Defining resilience, that which survives and persists. Buildings that survive the physical stresses of natural disaster offer lessons for architects who are to compose new buildings in similar regional and local contexts. Identifying the threshold between buildings that fail after a climatological event and those that perform successfully, one can more closely approximate the definition of resilient buildings and cities. Given the annual cycle of increasingly frequent and severe hurricanes in the Western Atlantic Ocean, those historic settlements whose building stock has withstood year after year after year of tropical rain, sun, and wind are worthy of closer examination. The loyalist settlements of the Bahamas offer insight to resilient design strategies for towns and buildings in the face of extreme weather patterns. These include the site planning, urbanism, architectural composition, structural systems, building materials and technology, passive cooling systems, culture and economy, all of which are discernible and pertinent throughout the region. In the aftermath of a direct hit by Category 5 Hurricane Dorian, it was apparent that the historic wood frame houses of Hopetown performed exceedingly well compared to their post-war counterparts nearby. The compact siding of buildings up on the ridge, the flexibility of the brace frame construction, the elevation of the structure from the ground, the tight roof eaves, and the operable shutters all contributed to the resilient nature of these buildings. The oldest house on the island, situated directly on the beach but behind the dune, suffered only minor exterior damage. While the storm surge surely flooded the interior, the water would have quickly drained right out through the wood floorboards. Knowing by drawing. To observe, measure, and record the physical characteristics of a building is to memorialize it, remember it, and to cognitively know the building. The author of a measured drawing acquires knowledge of a building directly from the source and therefore begins the process, according to Bloom's taxonomy, to create new knowledge. The Historic American Building Survey not only exists as a catalog of U.S. patrimony, but also serves as a platform for students of architecture to learn about buildings. The University of Miami School of Architecture has offered students the HABS course as part of a preservation certificate for many years. Building subjects have been primarily local, but do include buildings in the Bahamas, Cuba, and Curacao. Turning to Dunmore Town, the residency on Harbor Island is a building of high cultural value for the community. It also offers many valuable lessons in resilience for architects working in the region today. Its favorable site upon the island's ridge was the home of Lord Dunmore, formerly the governor of Virginia at the time of the American Revolution, among those who fled the colonies and was recommissioned to the Bahamas. The outstanding deep verandas, which provide abundant shade and rain protection, are deep enough to accommodate outdoor activities beyond just circulation. Over the years, inappropriate incursions have been made, but the bones are all still there. In recent years, the structure has fallen into disuse, and its lack of maintenance, coupled with increasingly strong and frequent weather events, have led to the building's decay, particularly the veranda's upper floor and roof deck. In collaboration with local partners such as the Antiquities, Monuments, and Museums Corporation of the Bahamas and the University of the Bahamas, the University of Miami has engaged in the pursuit of a restoration project beginning with the HABS documentation. Recently, School of Architecture has also worked with the university's Institute for Data Science to integrate newer technologies to the coursework. With just 2 full working days, our group of 11 undergraduate students set out to capture enough information to produce a complete set of existing conditions drawings. While access to the upper floor was very limited, students managed to get the critical dimensions they needed by methodically making their way around the entire building with measuring tapes and pencils. Following the HABS standards, they recorded the building dimensions on field notes on large format graph paper with great detail and clarity, which then served as the basis for producing architectural drafts that describe all of the building's major components. For example, this foundation plan reveals the stone walls of the masonry core of the building protect a cistern, which may have served a communal role given the site's location at one of the highest points in the settlement. The building section reveals a typical Bahamian roof, steep enough for an attic space to provide thermal insulation and set on the structural walls with no overhang, and a second, more shallow roof over the porch, or in this case, the wraparound veranda. Even though the house is at the top of the ridge, there's an adequate crawl space for ventilation and access to the cistern. Incorporating drone-mounted cameras into our toolbox allowed us to better understand the vertical dimensions of the roof and the expanse of the site. Here we see the residency with its decaying veranda roof at the center of the historic settlement, high above the coastline, with North Eleuthera in the distance. The aerial photographs were then processed back on campus to produce aerial and frontal photogrammetry, which are pictures without any perspectival distortion, photos that can be measured with great accuracy once back home. Furthermore, the data collected on site yielded a 3D point cloud that could be referred to back in the studio, which facilitated the production of the 2D drawings. The point cloud captures both the hard dimensions the students need, but also the color and light we're accustomed to expect from photographs. Advancing the technology for representation of buildings in both 2D and 3D has long been a pursuit of architects. This engraving of the Villa Caprarola by Peruzzi and later Vignola represents a building volumetrically while also revealing the building's floor plan and building section, critical for an architect to truly know and understand a building. Due to the pandemic last year, we were unable to travel to Hopetown with the students, but we were able to visit the local Coconut Grove Schoolhouse, a Bahamian building right here in Miami. We were also able to test out a new LiDAR scanner. This point cloud was produced far more quickly and in a format that's easier to analyze and manipulate. Here we see an orthographic slice through the point cloud. While imperfect, it does reveal, with true dimensions, the same characteristics of brace frame wood construction to be found in the oldest houses in Hopetown. If we are to educate architects about coastal resilience, we can identify those places that have demonstrated resilience through natural disasters, and we can provide an opportunity to collect the data necessary to produce architectural drawings while incorporating the most effective technology to do so. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ricardo and Teofilo. I think your presentation shows us the importance of the resilience to architecture, to the city, or even to the heritage. I believe it will be a very important research field of the heritage conservation. Thank you very much. Yeah, so now we thanks for all the speakers of this session. Yeah. Now we come to the time for discussion and conversation. Yeah, if anyone have some question to other speakers, and we can make some free discussion. I think as a beginning, I have a common question to all the speakers. Yes, maybe we can begin we can start our discussion from this question. My question is, how can we understand the meaning of the historical authenticity? Does it mean only some specific static physical element, or mean the living culture, and how to balance the requirement of the development with the requirement of preservation of historical authenticities? Yeah, this is my small question, and maybe we can discuss about it. What's your opinion about this question, Professor Xu?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think the most challenging part is that it is almost impossible to make a standardized recipe for for all different projects, and we have to focus the specific features of a different sites and different heritage different properties, and that's how I feel from my practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Please, Teofilo, please.
Yes, I would agree with that completely, because I don't think that we can apply one system or one criteria for all preservation efforts, whether they are living culture or whether they are indeed buildings or objects, artifacts to be preserved. I think we have to find a more sophisticated way of understanding the different conditions of buildings. For instance, I don't think that the modest, small, shy wood frame constructions from the Bahamas, for instance, can be compared to the mosque cathedral, if I get it right, from Cordoba. I don't think that it's that's possible. The one other thing that I would say, following up on Professor Xu's comments, is that I think that the best way to preserve, if I may say so, is by making buildings, old buildings, still functional and viable today. There's no better way to preserving buildings, and we see this in the cathedral also, in the mosque cathedral, excuse me, where the even though there's a dramatic change in ideology, even of religion primarily, the building continues to function. And so I think that this is something that we need as architects and urbanists and preservationists to promote, not just the preservation of buildings, but the manner in which buildings can indeed be functional and provide services to the general public today.
Okay, okay, thank you. And the Professor Placido.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Professor Victoria. It's each case is a case, and there are many different factors that would affect this purpose of preservation, of restoration, of intervention in general. And I also completely agree that there is a key in the continuity of the life of the buildings, in the use of how the afterlife of the buildings is really determinant in all these purposes. I think that in general all the presentations have been showing the potentials and the limitations of this of these ideas, and I think they really wonderfully illustrate the complexity of this discussion. I have a particular question to Professor Xu Dongming about the very interesting case of Daming Palace, which I had the opportunity to visit a couple of years ago, and when you bring this issue of the reconstruction of the gate, would you? I mean, I would rather think that this is an issue of a recreation of the original gate rather than a reconstruction of the gate. And I'm mentioning this because knowing and being familiar with the situation in China, I think it is important to show it as an alternative concept. I think we are discussing on reconstruction from a very well-established perspective, which is based on the objectivity of materiality, on the abstract notion of the values, which is has been operating in the heritage field since almost 4 decades already. But how the issue of the recreation, on which I think great part of the work that has been developed in Xi'an in the last years has been is a clear example, refers more to the idea of the experience of the place, which is to a certain extent very, very important in the contemporary uses of heritage, which go beyond the pure scientific dimension, the pure touristic dimension, which was really important, but also affecting, for example, the political meanings of heritage and the political significance that in China, for example, the recovery of this memory of the great times of Tang and dynasties, Ming dynasties, etc., have today in the country. So that is maybe my comment or my question also to Professor Xu.
Thank you very much, Professor Gonzalez. I think it's very interesting. That's a very interesting comment. In fact, I think when I ask different experts with this Daming case, and I can see the answers are very divided. Some think it's totally it's totally out of it's totally against the principles for the presentation of archaeological sites, and but some experts, including including some of my colleagues when I work at Norwegian University of Architecture and Science and Technology, and they confirmed this is a way for recreation. But I think the main challenge of this interpretation is that, as I show it in the slide, it could be inclusive or misleading for the audience, because we can see even for the exact same size, the different archaeologists and different experts can make rather quite different way of a restore image. So personally, so I think we always have an idealized image. We all have an idealized image of the object in question, and our image is shaped by our ideas of the object's states at the time of its creation, and these idea of the objects can be based. I think so personally, I feel when the visual reality technology can be probably can be better option when it's mature in the field of a museum exhibition today. That's how I feel. But I think as for the approach to the Daming case, I think it's rather okay, because I think as a result, it's not quite disturbing. It's a quite I think it's quite connected with the settings of the site. But for for the another two cases I showed in the Hanyangling mausoleums with the Han Dynasty, and the other one also in the with the Tang Dynasty in the city of Luoyang, I think that's probably from my experience, it's a little bit too much, because I sort of feel like like you restore an image from very little evidence. I think that's probably too that's probably too much for. But I think absolutely it's there. It is. I think it is okay to try this approach with some low-level listed sites. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Christoph Schnorr. You have something to say, please.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Hua. I like this question about authenticity, and I was thinking about this. If we imagined that the courthouse in Apia was still there, so there's this kind of one big problem that it has been torn down, but was it still there? There would still be the problem of what is the original and what is the authentic. So Placido Gonzalez showed us the problem in Cordova, and in Apia, on a much smaller scale, we've got the same problem because of the three phases, the three stages in which this was built. And the problem that we encountered in Samoa was that the trust was very much in love with the stage that was there around 1912. And they said, we want to go back to that original stage. We don't like this kind of bigger version that it is now. So can we please reduce it? And that is also easier then to replicate or to at least reconstruct. So that was one kind of difficulty that we tried to argue, where it's not just what you like or what you want, but it is actually what is sort of the authentic is and what it has developed into. That's the one thing. And the other one is, I kind of tried to indicate that although it is a German building, as in the sense of built by or designed by a German builder, it's perhaps not a German building at all because it used American timber. It was built in Samoa. It was first used by the Germans, then by the New Zealanders, and later by the Samoan government itself. So in this sense, the cultures have been able to kind of intertwine and kind of be quite condensed in this building, and you can't separate that. So there's something that makes it more difficult to say this is this or that.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have a question from a listener, Nana. Yeah, Nana Charles, please. You can ask your question. Yeah, can you hear it? Yeah, he writes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Hi. Yeah, please.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, my question was coming. My question was coming to the level of the recent wars in the world, the wars and the pandemics. Can this war and the pandemic have an effect on the world heritage? What is the place of world heritage when it comes to war and pandemics? Can we question it?
Okay, our speakers who will answer the question. Yeah, maybe Professor Placido, can you answer this question?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's it's a very pertinent question, and a difficult one to answer. Basically, I would highlight something that that refers to this question, as well as discussion on reconstruction of sites. We need to pose the question of the what for, and the usefulness and the utility and the motivations that underlie either reconstructions, either the existence of World Heritage itself, because this is, the key question that is normally not addressed. We all know a lot about the what. Right? We all know, we document buildings, and we have a very more and more accurate and impressive ways of documenting the heritage. We know about the why, right? We know about the values and the reasons for which we give an importance to these elements, and especially for the case of the World Heritage, which is the outstanding proof of the culture of humanity. But the what for remains to be addressed, and I think that is the key question, and maybe it helps to address many of the issues that are normally left aside, issues of power that, for the case of World Heritage, are determinant, and we cannot avoid them when we when we have a discussion about the World Heritage. So, yeah, the usefulness, the use of heritage would be the key, and maybe a helpful way to find an answer to these questions. I don't know if I answered to what Mr. Nana Charles was asking.
Yeah, please, Pedro, please.
It's a very interesting question, of course, and central to this discussion. But I'd like to remind us all that disasters, natural disasters, war, pandemics as well now, are not arguably the main cause of the destruction of cultural patrimony. We all know this. I mean, if you look at the city of Kyoto, for instance, which survived the American, it was exempt actually from the American blanket bombing from the Second World War. It was eventually, destroyed because of capital investment and speculation in economic speculation, both in property, finca raíz, as well as in cladding. So I'm not sure whether the main bulk of the destruction of our cultural patrimony comes from these exceptional moments of disasters and war and pandemics, it's certainly exacerbated. It is certainly very much within our consciousness as an immediate reaction. But there are wider, I think, reasons for the loss of cultural patrimony that might have to do, I'm not sure if I don't have the answers, of course, but might have to do with the way that we see ourselves in our history and our memory.
Okay, thank you. And what's your opinion, Fatima Tuah here? Do you have something to say to respond to this question?
Thank you for that. I would say that we need to embrace that the events that are happening in the world. It's part of our history. What we are going through now as wars and pandemic is going to be registered as history 100 years down the line. So whatever damage that is being experienced, it's difficult to come up to a particular stand, but I think we need to embrace that damage as an evidence of an occurrence that happened at a particular time. Like the way we would interpret ruins, that in our case in Kenya, when we have ruins, we don't reconstruct it, we interpret and tell the story as a ruin. And what happened towards that destruction and the story behind it. So it is our mandate as heritage managers to try as much as possible and protect heritage for the future generation. But when I feel personally that when it comes to complete destruction that has happened from an event, it becomes part of our history in the future. So we need to accept that change within reason and document it as part of a process of the future. I don't know whether I make any sense there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Obento, do you want to say something about our session to all the speakers? Umberto, do you want to say something to us?
Yeah. I think that the presentation was really interesting. I think that again we have seen how the problems related with disaster and pandemics and the processes of reconstruction, even if they are situated in different parts of the world, they have a minimum, a minimum common, that it's the necessity to protect and to have plan of management of risk and reconstruction plan to maintain the integrity, authenticity, and to maintain and so, the physical construction of buildings, that it's very important to generate new relationship between communities and heritage in general. I have no specific question. I don't know if we have a question here in the chat. I don't know if we have question in YouTube, Karen. No. Yeah, maybe if we can share some finishing words.
Okay. Okay, please. Yeah.
I give the okay.
Ricardo, please
go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was especially interesting in Fatma's presentation of the Levin House, that before the restoration could take place, there was intense communication with the users to determine the program and the use of the restored building. And I think it speaks to how preservation is, exceedingly local and about the people on the ground. But at the same time, we're all connected around the world because we share this heritage. I mean, I feel the Mosque Cathedral in Cordoba is as much a part of my heritage, even though, it's on the other side of the world. So this question of being very, very local and at the same time global and universal is an interesting question. And while these places may be threatened, at the end of the day, if we cannot preserve these places, I think at the very least we can make an effort to document them, and with new tools to document them more precisely, but also more quickly and even more safely. I think it's an important effort to document.
Thank you, Ricardo. I don't know if someone want to add some closing words. Yeah, Teófilo?
Yes, well, I wanted to thank you all for organizing this event. It's quite impressive, actually. And Professor Hua,
Yeah.
for
For
coordinating these sessions. Really quite extraordinary. And I think what it shows us is that whether it's as wonderful as a monument might be in Xi'an, or a building that has disappeared in Samoa, or a community center in Kenya, that we all share this interest in preservation of cultural patrimony, and that to me is a good thing, without question. And I'm very, Ricardo and I think, or I speak for Ricardo and myself in thanking you all for such a wonderful opportunity, including the students that are working on this and monitoring this and helping us with this, by the way.
Okay, thank you. And Mito, shall we, for the limitation of time, I think maybe the session will be to the end. And do you want to say some words?
Yes, thank you. I would like again to thank Professor Hua and all you for your contribution to the session during this month. We have talked many times about heritage, about communities, about the necessity to documentation and to generate new knowledge about this. And we have seen a lot of destruction, a lot of death, a lot of loss of heritage, and we consider that the way maybe we need new ways to manage this together, create new networks and create new way to manage heritage in general all around the world, because the challenges are very, very big in this case. Thank you very much again, specifically to Christoph. I think that this early in the morning.
It's quite early in the morning. That's right.
Yeah, great thanks to the organizer of the seminar, and thanks to all the presenters. Thank you very much. I expect to discuss some discussion in future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, thank you. Tomorrow we have our last session tomorrow at 9 at 1 p.m. UTC. Is the closing section. Will participate Francesco Bandarin, ex-UNESCO director, and Mario Santana, ICOMOS General Secretary, and many others. We will have other important contribution. Please follow us, and thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.